So welcome to this Blender tutorial where we are going to make a set of polyhedral dice as you would use in a lot of tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder or any number of other games. And so we're going to make the whole set. They are some basic geometric objects. In fact, they do also represent, except for, I believe, the 10-sided die, they are the sort of platonic solids, which are the only three-dimensional shapes that you can make with faces that are regular faces. So they're all, basically, all the faces are the same size. So let's go ahead and just hit A to select all, hit delete on your keyboard to get rid of everything. We're not going to need any of that stuff right at the moment. So we're going to start with probably one of the easier ones to make. We're going to start with a D20. Okay, so let's go add, mesh. You're going to choose icosphere. And we want to change this to subdivisions down to 1. And this is going to give us a 20-sided die shape. So these, as you can see, are triangles that are joined together to form a continuous surface. And so there are 20 sides. And what we're going to do now is go to the modifiers panel, choose add modifier. I'm going to choose bevel. And as you can see, it has started to affect our shape here. So we want to bump the segments up to 3, and then we're going to change the amount to 0.03. And what you see here is that there's still some, you can still see the geometry on these beveled edges. So we want to go into Add Modifier, choose Subdivision Surface, and then we're going to bump this up to 2, and that's going to smooth that out, make a little more geometry there. If we right-click on it and choose Shade Smooth, that's also going to help improve the look of things. So that's our D20, so let's go ahead and rename that. Go into the Object Properties, change the name to D20. And while we're at it, let's go up to the collection, double-click on it, and change that to Dice. And then we'll just hide that by clicking the little eye there, and we'll make our next die. So let's do a D6 because that's easy as well. We're going to add mesh, cube, and then we're going to do the same things that we just did with the D20. So modifiers, add modifier, choose the bevel, change this to about, let's see, somewhere around 0.06 works well for the cube if I remember. I'm going to bump the segments up to 3, and again add the subdivision surface and bump the view up to 2. Also we'll want to right click, shade smooth, and that's going to smooth out those edges and make it so they're not so sharp. But that's the basic model for the D6, so let's rename that. Double click on the cube up here, type D6, and that's good. Again, we're going to hide that. Okay, so up next, we're going to make a D8. So for this, we're going to start with a plane. So add mesh, plane, and tab into edit mode. Hit 7 on the keyboard to go into the top view. And then we're going to use the knife tool, which is over here on the left. So we're going to click on one vertex, drag it to the opposite vertex, click on that, then hit spacebar to make a cut, then do it again for the other diagonal. Okay, and now we'll want to click on the move tool just to close out of the knife so that that's not active. And now I'm going to select this center vertex. I'm going to go into the front view, and we're just going to drag that center vertex up. We want to make it sort of a pyramid shape like this. That's probably pretty good. We're not going for super accurate here, but that should work for us. Now we're in the modifiers tab. We're going to go over and choose the mirror modifier. And we're going to want to mirror on Z, turn off the X. So now we have our D8 shape. So we'll want to hit Tab on the keyboard, go back into object mode, apply this modifier so that it actually makes the geometry that we were just mirroring there, and now it's a mesh that we can actually edit. So in the modifier tab, go ahead and choose Add Modifier again, bevel, and we're going to want to set the bevel on the D8 to about 0.03. with 3 segments. And then we'll want to throw that subdivision surface on, bump it up to 2, and now we have our D8 made. So we'll again rename that D8, and hide that, click in the eye. So let's do a D4 next. So go up to Add, choose Mesh. You're going to go back down to the icosphere, and you can leave it on that one, Subdivisions. And now we want to hit Tab on the keyboard, and we just want to grab one of these triangles here. That's going to become the basis for our D4. So we want to go just select 3 vertices, so we have one triangular face selected. And then we're going to go up to Select, choose Invert, so that it selects everything else. And then we're going to hit Delete on the keyboard and choose Vertices, and that's going to leave us just with that one triangle. So now we want to tab back into the object mode, go up to Object, go Set Origin, and you're going to go Geometry to Origin. So that's going to move the geometry actually to the origin for the object, which is what we want. And now we're going to hit Tab to go into Edit Mode, hit A to select all. We're going to use the Rotate transform, and we'll go into the Front mode, and then we'll just rotate this until it's about level here, like so, with our geometry leveled out. And so then we just want to go into the face mode. We're going to go E to extrude, and then we're going to just bring it up, and we want it to be about the height there of the triangle. So that's probably pretty close. We can adjust it again. And so we'll go back to the vertex select, and we're going to hit M on the keyboard to merge and choose at center. And that's going to then make our triangular pyramid. Probably need to bring the apex down just a little bit. There we go, that's pretty good. And now hit Tab on the keyboard to go back into object mode, and we want to go Add Modifier, Bevel, and then we're going to set the amount to 0.05 and segments to 3. Okay, then we're going to add the subdivision surface, and we're going to bump that up to 2, and again right click on it, shade smooth, and we're going to change this over to D4 on the name, and then turn it off with the little eye. All right, so now we want to make we still got a D10 and a D12. So let's make the D12 next. So I'm going to go Add, Mesh, and this time we're going to choose Cylinder. I'm going to set the vertices to 5. I'm going to hit Tab on the keyboard to go into Edit Mode, and then we'll just grab the top vertices again, delete vertices, and now we have this pentagon here down at the bottom. So hit A to select all, go into the front mode with 1 on the number pad. So go into the edge select, go to Edge menu, choose Extrude Edges, and then hit Escape on the keyboard so that you cancel the free move. Hit S to scale, and just scale it out a little bit, and then grab it with the transform and move it up. And so what we want to do is we want to try to create these edges. We want them to be about the same length as the bottom edge there. So just bring it up a little bit more, let's say. That's probably a little too much. So right about there is probably going to be pretty good. So right now these are quads, so we need to make them into 5-sided objects as well. So go to the Edge menu, choose Subdivide, and then go over to the Vertex select, and you'll see now that it has put an extra vertex in the middle of each of these edges. So we're going to go Shift select all of those, okay, and then we're just going to move those up, and then we need to move them out a little bit. So go hit 7 on the keyboard to go into the top view, hit S on the keyboard to scale. We just want to bring them out so that they're about like this. But they should probably go up a little bit more, because we want to make each face have each of the edges be the same size. So it's just this pentagon being repeated. We can make some adjustments as we go, but that'll do it for there. I think that'll work. Okay, and so then what we want to do is select the face select, just select the bottom face, hit Shift D on the keyboard to duplicate, and then we're going to move this up. And we want to have that be the top of our dodecahedron. So that's probably pretty good height. We can always adjust it later. Now hit 7 on the keyboard to go in the top view. Choose the rotate tool, and we want to rotate this while holding control and rotate it 35 degrees so that it'll be offset in the way that we want. I think it's probably a little high right now, so let's bring it down a little bit just to there. That's pretty good. And now go back into the vertex select, and we'll just select these vertices there and hit F on the keyboard to create a new face. And then we're just going to do the same thing, and we're going to sort of create the rest of the faces of this object. All right, so there we go. Okay, so now we just need to make some adjustments. I think the top is a little bit high up, so let's go ahead and bring that down. We'll just select all of the vertices on the top there, hit 1 on the keyboard to go into the front mode, and we're just going to bring that down just a little bit. So I think that's better. All right, might want to just squish the whole thing just a smidge. So hit A to select all, use the scale tool, and we can just squish it just a little bit on Z. All right, that's looking pretty good there, I think. So hit Tab to go out of edit mode back into object mode, and we're just going to reset the transform real quick. Go object, set origin, and go geometry to origin, and that's going to make sure that the origin of the object is at its geometric center. Hit Tab, go into edit mode real quick. So we're going to go up to mesh, and we're going to choose normals, and we're just going to do recalculate outside, and that's going to recalculate the normals for the faces there. Should make everything good. Then go into the modifier tab, add in the bevel. We're going to bump that up to 0.03. 3 segments like before. Again, go put that subdivision surface to further smooth things out. And right click on the object, choose shade smooth, and you can always adjust the bevels, all that stuff. You can adjust this bevel over here as much as you like, and you can make those edges smoother if you want. So you could even go with something like that. I like the little bit harsher edges, so let's go 0.03. Actually, let's do 0.05. There we go. I like that. That looks good. All right, and then rename it. Double click on cylinder D12, and we can hide that. Okay, so now we want to make our D10. This is the only of these objects that is not one of the platonic solids. So what we need to do is go add, mesh, icosphere, and then we want to go up to the X-ray option up here. Hit Tab to go into edit mode, 1 to go into the front orthographic view. Then click somewhere to deselect. Select just these bottom vertices here, hit delete, and choose vertex. And so now we have a nice little pentagon up at the top that's been subdivided into 5 triangles. So now the next thing we need to do is go to the edge select mode, select one of the edges, select menu, select loops, edge loops. Get that whole loop there. Then go up to the edge menu, and we're going to use subdivide. And now go over to the vertex mode, and we're going to grab just the new vertices that we just made. And then hit 7 on the keyboard to go in the top mode, hit S to scale, and we want to bring those out. Okay, and now we want to go into the front mode, so hit 1 on the keyboard. And now just bring them down. So what we want to do is we want to make these faces flat. There we go. That's about right. What we want to do is go and hit 1 on the keyboard to go into the front mode, hit A to grab everything, and then we're just going to move this down so that it's about like that, so that the x-axis here is about halfway between that vertex and that vertex. And that's just going to help us line things up a little bit later. So now we just want to grab that top vertex, go into the front mode by hitting 1 on the keyboard, hit Shift D to duplicate, and then we're going to just move that single vertex down here. And we want it to be about the same height as it is here. So now what we want to do is just add these new faces. So grab that vertex there, hit Shift, click to grab the 3 there, hit F on the keyboard to make a new face. I'm actually going to turn off the X-ray so that we're not distracted by the other edges and stuff behind. And now just do the same thing to fill in the rest of our faces. And so now we've got everything stitched up. We have our D10. You might want to just make some slight adjustments here. So I'm going to select both of those, go into the scale tool, and I'm just going to bring them down just a little bit. I think that's a little bit better. And then we're going to go over to our add modifier, choose bevel, and then make the amount 0.6, let's say. Let's bump the segments up to 3. So now we want to add in that subdivision surface. Bump that up to 2. Tab back into object mode, right click on the object, choose shade smooth, and now we have a D10. I think I might do some slight adjustments to the geometry in the middle. Yeah, tab back into edit mode, click away to deselect, then go back onto the X-ray, go into the front view and just box select just the vertices in the middle, and we'll turn the X-ray view off again. And now just hit S on the keyboard to scale and scale them all in just a little bit. Now hit A on the keyboard to select all, hit S, and we're just going to make the whole thing a little bit bigger. And then tab to go back into the object mode, and that's looking pretty good for a D10, so let's rename that D10. And that's how we make all of the individual dice, and you can just click and drag on those eyeballs to bring them all on the screen at once. Let's click the move tool, and we can just sort of move them out here because we want to make them so they're sized relative to each other like a real dice set here. So we want to have them all on screen at the same time. And as you can see, they're very different sizes, so we just want to scale them to all be roughly the same size and make sure they're all shaded smooth, and then apply all of their scaling transformations. Probably also reset their origin points to their geometric origins as well. So let's go ahead and start doing that. Let's just go with the D4 first. I think the D20 is a good size to sort of be the base die. So then the D12 is about the right size already. D10 is about the right size. We just need to scale these two guys down and this one up. So let's do that. Scale that up. Okay. As you can see, the origins at the bottom, we don't want that. So we want it to be in its center. So go up to Object, Set Origin, Origin to Geometry. And so now I think that's pretty good. That one works. So we got, that's a little, yeah, that one works. And so our D10 is pretty good. We might want to make that just a little bit bigger. So we're going to hit S to scale. That's pretty good. And again, we'll just go Object, Set Origin, Origin to Geometry. And we'll do the same thing for the D12. I think the sizing's already pretty good on that. Object, Set Origin, Origin to Geometry. The icosphere should already have that applied, but we'll just do it just to be doubly sure. And then the cube, D6, we need to size that down a little bit. So S to scale, Get that about the size of a D6 compared to those other ones. That's pretty good. Maybe a little bit bigger. That's good. And again, object, origin to geometry. So let's select the D8, S to scale, and we're going to size that down a little bit. I think that's pretty good. Maybe a little bit bigger. There we go. I think that works. All right, and so then we're going to go to Object, Set Origin, Origin to Geometry. Let's just save the file. And then we want to apply the scaling on all of these objects real quick. So we're going to select each one in turn here. We'll start with the D4. We're going to hit Control A, choose Scale. Same thing for this. A, Scale. And just do that for all of them. And so that all of their scale in the transform panel should now all read 1 on each axis. And that's just going to be a little bit more helpful later when we go to do a few other things. Okay, so now we want to add some textures with the numbers for each of these dice. So in order to do that, the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to hide our dice collection. And then we're going to make sure the scene collection is selected. Add text. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to use Blender to make just a PNG image texture with a transparent background so that we can then map those numbers directly onto the textures for our dice. So with the new text object there, you just want to hit Tab to go into edit mode, and you hit backspace on your keyboard to delete the text. Hit the number 1, Tab there to go back into object mode, and then we're going to hit Shift D to duplicate, and we want to move this over so that it's about 2 blocks there on the grid away. Hit Tab, backspace, 2, and just go ahead and do the same thing, keeping about 2 of these squares on the grid in between each number. You want to go all the way up to 20. Just select all of those, hit Shift D to duplicate all of them at once, and then we're just going to move them down. Again, we want to have a decent amount of space between each number. And now just select the first one, Tab. And then for this one, we're going to do 20. We still need to have a number 10. So let's go ahead and move this 0 down here. Shift duplicate, move it back over here, and we'll make this 10. Okay, so that should be all of the numbers that we're going to need. So what we want to do is we want them to be spaced out enough. Yeah, let's go ahead and select all these guys. We're going to move them down farther, and then we're just going to start moving them over so that they have plenty of room between them. We just want to make sure that there's plenty of space because we don't want to have the faces of our dice or overlapping the numbers, having the numbers we don't want showing up on our faces. So if we just sort of spread them out like this, so like something like this, yeah, that'll work. Okay. Do 7 to go into the top mode, top view, then click somewhere else so we deselect. So we've got all of our numbers here now, 1 through 20, or 0 through 20. We want to then go to Add, go down to Camera, add a camera. Okay, and we also want to add a light. We're going to choose a sun. And I think that's going to be all we need here for the moment. I'm going to bump the strength of the sun, that up to 5. All right, now we want to position the camera. So go into the top mode by hitting 7 if you haven't already. Hit Control-Alt-0 on the keyboard, and that's going to snap the camera to your current view. Click the outline of the camera so it's selected. It'll turn yellow. Hit Grab on the keyboard, and then we're just going to move that so that all of our numbers are in view. That should probably be pretty good there, I think. We might zoom out just a little bit. So middle mouse button to rotate out of the camera view, and then just grab on the Z-axis, pull it up a little bit. Okay, that's going to be good. That's probably good. We want to just go up to File, Save real quick. Now select any one of your numbers. Go over to the Material tab, add a new material. Now scroll down to the emission. Click on that, and then bring that up to white there. And now we just want to go through and add this material that you just made to all of your numbers. Now that we have the material on here, we want to go into some of the render settings here. So go up to the little camera icon, scroll down, find film, expand that, check transparent. All right, so that's what that's going to do is when we render the image of this, the background, it will be transparent. So what we want to do is we want to go F12 to render, and that's going to render our image with our transparent background. We want to go up to Image, Save, make sure that PNG is selected and that RGBA is selected. But that A is an alpha channel, and that's going to store that transparency. So we'll just call this numbers, and just save it wherever you like. And then you can hit F11 to go back to Blender from the render window. And now we don't need any of this stuff anymore for now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make a new collection and put all that stuff in this collection and then turn it off, just in case we want to rearrange stuff and make a new copy of this thing later. So select Scene Collection in the collection viewer here. Right click, New Collection. Double click on that new collection and rename it to, let's see here, Numbers. And now we're just going to select everything we got here. Shift select to select all of it, and then drag it into the numbers and collapse that, and then uncheck it, and then we can recheck the dice. And if you rotate out of the camera view, you should now just be able to have the dice here. Real quick, we're going to save, and let's just go ahead and select our 6-sider because that's going to be super easy to work with. Now we need to put some materials on our actual dice here so we can start applying those textures. So select our cube, our D6, go down to the Materials tab, New Material. And you can make multiple materials if you want to make different colors and stuff like that, but for now we're just going to make one material that will handle all of the different objects, and then we'll do different UV maps onto our texture in order to set the numbers up. So once we've got our material set up here, we go into Shading, and now we have some nodes here we need to add. So just bring out this material node out here, and then go into Add, and we're going to go Texture, Image Texture, drop that over here for now, add Shader, Principled BSDF, because we want a second one of those, middle mouse button to drag the workspace, and then we're going to bring these guys down here for now, and add shader, mix shader, drop that in between there, and now we want to pull the BSDF out of here, plug that into the other one, and so we're going to take the alpha from our image texture node here, and we're going to plug that into the alpha here. All right, and So let's go ahead and just change this color here so that we're going to be a little bit different. Let's go ahead and make that blue. Now we're going to actually hook up our image texture. We may need to make some changes in here in a minute, but first we're going to open, choose numbers, open image. And now as you can see, it's putting our numbers on here, but they're not in the right places. So we need to go in and sort of retarget where the UV map is set up. So to do that, we go to UV editing. And our cube is selected here. We want to unwrap each individual face here. Select one of the faces of the cube. Go up, hit UV, unwrap, and now hover your mouse over this image viewer over here. Hit A to select all the vertices, and then hit S to scale. And you're going to just hit G to grab, and then you can position that like that. Now we need to actually see here, so go up to the menu bar and scroll your mouse wheel until you get over to the shading options, and we'll just put the rendered shading on there. And so now you can see that that is positioned pretty good. Let's make it a little bit smaller so that the number gets bigger, and then we just want to do the same thing for all of the other sides. So that select a face, go up to UV, choose unwrap, then hover over the image editor, hit A to select all, S to scale, and then find your next number. So let's make the 6 on the base here, and just get it. You can shift click to select multiple, and those are about the same size, so I like that. All right, and then you're just going to follow that same process. Select a side, UV, unwrap, A, S, and so forth. All right, so that's pretty good. Let's go back into the layout view and choose the shaded mode. Let's go ahead and make the background not transparent anymore because we don't need that. So in the render properties, go back down to film, uncheck transparent. So as you can see, our numbers aren't very bright. We'd like them to be a nice sort of bright white. So we're going to change that by going back into the shading tab. And now we want to go down here where we've got our alpha channel plugged in. I'm going to change this to emission up to bring that up to be white, and then there, you change that. Now you can see that it is really starting to come out. We should turn the sun back on. So let's go turn numbers on real quick, but we just want to pull the sun here, just sort of pull that out back into the main scene collection, and then uncheck numbers again. And now we have the lighting on our die. And so you can see I need to readjust sort of some of where the UV maps are. But overall, it looks pretty much like a plastic die with some numbers on it. So you're going to do the exact same thing now for each of the other dice. And you're just going to unwrap each individual face in the same way. Now that we've got the material set up, though, you shouldn't need to actually change any material settings. What you'll need to do is just select one of the objects, go in here, choose the dice material, and then we're going to go into the UV editing panel again, center up on the die, and you just keep going. Okay, so now I've got all of the dice textured and got their numbers going, except for the D4. We're going to have to make a special texture for the D4 in order to be able to get all of the numbers to line up in the right places. But that's very easy. We're going to use the same process that we used to make the original sheet of numbers. We're also going to just update the original real quick so that the 9s and 6s are differentiated by a period. next to them, just as they do on most regular polyhedral dice. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and just uncheck the dice collection and check the numbers collection. And now we're going to go select the 6, tab into edit mode, and just put a period after it. And do the same thing with the 9. We just want to go back into our render properties, go down to the film, open that up, check transparent again, F12 on the keyboard to render that out. Now we need to save the image again. So go image, and then go save, and it's going to come up, and we just want to save it over the original. Save as image, F11 to go back out. And now, if we turn our dice on, a whole bunch of them just got screwed up. Okay, so if you need to fix those, any dice that if their textures get messed up, just click them, hit tab to go in edit mode, and it should reorient everything there. But the periods aren't showing up because we haven't reloaded the texture. So if we go into the UV editing panel, and then up here we have the numbers PNG selected, image, and then hit reload, it should now reload that into memory so that the periods will show up next to the 9 and the 6 to differentiate them. So now we need to go back into the layout mode and turn the dice off again right now. For the D4, we just need 1, 2, 3, and 4, so we'll just select those, Shift D to duplicate, and then I'm just going to move those out here into sort of some free space that they have to work with. And so in order to make the D4 work, we want to go like this. So we're going to do a 1 here, just bring that down, and then we want to bring the 2 over to about here, let's say. And then we want to rotate that around Z, 135 degrees, about something like that, 125 maybe. Sort of rotate that like that, and sort of position it about like so. And we're going to do the same thing with 3, just going the other direction. We just want it to be about like something like that. We just want to make them into a little triangle there. And then we want to do a few more sets. So we got 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we need, let's move this over a little bit. Now we need one more that does not have a 1. That is just the other side, which is the 4, the 2, and the 3. So let's see here. How about we grab this 3, this 4, and we need a 2. This one we're going to just cancel out that rotation so that it's back to the original orientation. Okay, and now just to make things a little bit more succinct, let's just rearrange these guys a little bit so that they're nicely spaced out. Because again, we want to make sure to have decent amount of space between each of these sets of numbers. Maybe make some slight adjustments on their positioning because we want them to kind of be able to line up with each other a little bit. That'll look nice. Okay, I think that'll work. So hit 7 on the keyboard to go in the top mode, click away so that we're not selecting anything, Control-Alt-0 to snap the camera to that view. Select the camera with the mouse, G to grab, and That's probably pretty good right there. Save, do a quick F12 to render. All right, so then go image, save. Make sure you change the name here. And we'll say D4 numbers. That should be a good name for it. You just don't want to replace the other one. So F11 to go back to Blender. And now let's uncheck our numbers. Open up dice again. Center up on our D4. And as you can see, just need to fix these guys just with the tab key there. So now we want to select our D4, go down to the materials tab, select the dice material, and then you'll see this little number right here next to it. It'll probably say 6 if you have the material applied to all of the dice. Just click on that. That'll give us a copy of this material that we can then modify and do some slightly different stuff with versus the other guys. So let's change that to dice D4 just to make sure we know what it is. Now we're going to go into the shading mode, and you'll notice here that we have all of the original nodes that we had set up before. So we can just hit the X next to the numbers PNG on the image texture, and we're going to go open, and then we're going to do the D4 numbers, open that. And now we can go into our UV editing and unwrap those faces onto our UV map. So UV, unwrap, A to select all, S to size, and now we just want to position this so that it works as a D4. And so since we want to line everything upright, so that looks good there, and then keep going. Okay, so far so good. We just one more to do. I was just checking to make sure that the numbers line up correctly. We want the same number to be facing upright whenever the die lands. So now we're just going to do this last one. All right, and so 4 is in the right place. Yeah, so let's center up on this again, and let's make sure that all the numbers are right. So 4, 4, and 4, 1. 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, and 3. Okay, so we are lined up correctly. And so there you go. That's how you can make a set of polyhedral dice using Blender. If you enjoyed this tutorial, I have other tutorials in the works, so hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on them. And if you really like this tutorial, in the description, there is a link to my Patreon. So head on over there, and my supporters get exclusive asset packs and other cool stuff I've made over the years for animation, VFX, video production, Dungeons and Dragons, all sorts of stuff. Alrighty, thanks for watching. Cheers.